gentlemen, turn your speakers up. It's time for the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast. A podcast discussing all things AEW and WWE. Oh yeah! Let's meet the hosts. First, a man hailing from the hub city in Indiana. He goes by @TooSweetKyle on Twitter. The host, Kyle Gagliardi. And your co-host, hailing from the Valley of Lake Tahoe. He goes by @JimTuck89 on Twitter. Jim Tucker. And last but not least, hailing from the cornfield somewhere in Indiana, the full-time part-timer, Ian Garavaglia. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram @PodOnTheMark.
What is going on, everyone? You're listening to the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, hosted by the Marks, for the Marks, and I'm your host, Mr. OTM Kyle Gagliardi. And my co-host this evening is not my good friend Jim Tucker. It is not my great friend Ian Garavaglia, but we got Mr. Cincinnati himself, Eric from the Wrestling Junkies. Eric, how the hell are you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Kyle. Always good to be here. Glad that I could help you out today. Shout outs to Tuck and Ian tonight.
Yeah, you know, Tuck just had a baby boy, so congrats to him. The first of hopefully a few for him and Mista, so congrats to them on a healthy birth of their son, Augie. And Ian couldn't make it this evening because unfortunately he had someone pass away in his family. So I think it's fair that we have a man from the Main Event Wrestling Network join me. So here you are, in your glory.
Yeah.
What's new, my friend? Did you hear me? Hold on. Did it cut out for a second?
Yeah. Frozone's here. This is, I swear to, okay. It's all right. It's all right. I will hear as much as I can, and I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna assume that everything you say is all great about me. I know I'm awesome, so yeah.
Yeah, everything I say is great in general, so that's a safe assumption right there, sir. Full disclaimer for the audio listeners that are listening back. The connection might not be great, but hey, we're going to battle through it. It's a flu game, I guess we can call it, but the comment section is here. We got Kine in the house. He said he was first, and he definitely was first. Your co-host, Chris, said, what the hell is going on here? Would you like to answer the podcast dad's question?
I mean, what do you think is going on here, bud? I got the call and I was ready to go. So, why not? And MVP. I mean, we still have our show at 8:30. We get our Wind Down Wednesday episode of the show. So, I'm pulling double duty tonight. I'm getting my reps in. Chris is off doing dad things as well. So, let's hear it for #Team No Kids here, bud.
Yeah, that's right. Me and you living the bachelor life. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
So you don't get Tucky and Ian, but you get two bachelors. What's better than that? But before we get into everything here, Mr. Cincinnati, I got to remind the listeners about all the great merchandise we have at the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast.com. You can't only just get the OTM stuff. You can also get main event merch, which, by the way, I think you might need to cop some of that new merch that just dropped.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I see what you got going on back there in the background there, bud.
Oh, what are you talking about, the TV?
Yeah, I like the TV, and then I like the tapestry there in the background you got. Yeah, that's pretty slick.
What do we got to do? We got to get you a Wrestling Junkies one for sure.
We do. We absolutely will have a chat about that.
Chris said Johnny will hear about this. I wonder how Taco's doing. What's Taco up to nowadays?
Taco's in Bali or, I don't know, Ibiza somewhere. I don't know. I'd never asked the guy.
Yeah, that's fair. He likes to keep things to himself anyways, I heard. But, of course, don't forget to follow the Main Event Wrestling Network, Eric's podcast, The Wrestling Junkies, who are going live later tonight, like he said, are a part of the Main Event Wrestling Network. So give us a follow at mainevent_net. But, Mr. Cincinnati, I got to ask, what do you think about the Royal Rumble, man? Just overall scope of things.
Overall, WWE has continued their very strong trend of PLEs. They absolutely knocked it out of the park in 2023. That's not to say there aren't things that I wouldn't do to improve what we saw on Saturday night, but overall, very, very happy with what they delivered.
Yeah, and I don't think you won any of our Rumble pools, and neither did I, so we're not going to have that $300 in our bank account. But, shout out to Pat and shout out to Mikey Kubaki, who ended up winning it. So congrats to those fellas. But I had a couple people over. What was your Royal Rumble watch party like?
Yeah, so it was a grand total of 3 of us, myself, the podcast dad, and ironically another friend of mine named Chris. So I don't know. I know a lot of Chris's in my life for some reason, but had plenty of pizza, plenty of good snacks because it's a WWE pay-per-view, and he just joined the board of directors. I did have to get a bottle of Terramana, so had to support the great one, but very good vibes all around, and I can't wait to do it again. Kegs and eggs for Elimination Chamber.
I tell you what, in the main event group chat, Mr. Cincinnati over here came up with the great idea of going live before Elimination Chamber. And I want to put this out there. It's a 4 a.m. start. But
I know.
You piqued my interest. I'm not going to say no just yet. But you are crazy, my friend.
Oh, I know.
Well, we're out here grinding on the network. But I had a couple people over. Actually, some of them not really diehard wrestling fans, which is always interesting, but they were very surprised, and I know you guys touched on this on, I think it was last night's podcast, about the theme songs in the WWE and how they're not recognizable, but they were amazed that I was able, in the matter of 2 seconds, to name every single person. So I just want to say I'm better than you, and you know it.
You won't hear any argument from me.
But those theme songs are not great right now. I think
all kinds of generic. Yeah.
Remember back in the day, all the good ones we had?
Yeah, I feel like this is the time for me to say this because I think about this once a year. Jim Johnston for WWE Hall of Fame. At this point, like this guy is an icon. He is a treasure. Quite frankly, if they wanted to put him back on the payroll again, I would not be upset about it. I mean, there's just I don't know that is and I know that we're getting into the Rumble matches, but it's one of those things where. If you can't recognize, especially with the minimalist set, who's coming into the match, that can kill some of the excitement until they get around the ring. It's the long ramp just from the optics. If I'm in the crowd and I didn't know what was going on, it might make things a little tough for me.
Yeah, and you talked about the minimalized set that they had, and they've been running that set kind of for a lot of their major PLEs. They only have, I believe, one Tron, and it's hanging above the ring, probably 200 feet high, so it's not easy for fans to access that and see who's coming out because, let's be honest, most of us don't know Indy Hartwell's theme. We don't know Candice LeRae's theme. They're still relatively new to the main roster, but, we're talking about some of the participants in the Women's Rumble, so let's just get into what happened, and it kicked off the show. Obviously, Bayley is the winner, which was my pick. Did you have Bayley as well?
I did, yes. Podcast Dad, it did as well.
High five, right here.
Boom. There we go.
It's a mirrored image.
Yeah.
A for effort over here. But yeah, Bayley obviously winning her very first Royal Rumble. Still teasing who she's going to choose. I think it's safe to assume that she will end up going up against Io Sky. But before we talk about Bayley and her future, let's talk about the match as a whole. First off, what'd you think? A couple surprises, a big one being Jordynne Grace of TNA.
Yeah, I am pleasantly surprised by this Rumble match. In my humble opinion, I think that this is the best one that they have ever produced. The surprises were genuine. I think that we all had an idea that Naomi was going to come back. We all had an idea that Jade Cargill was going to debut. I don't think that anybody expected Naomi to come in at number 2 to face off with Natty and kind of have that Iron Woman run for this match. That is a testament to her because it cannot be easy away from the biggest wrestling company on the planet and stand up for yourself and bet on yourself. Plenty of people try it. Not everybody succeeds. And there are outliers, and we can now consider Naomi to be one of those outliers. So the fact that she came back, amazing. The fact that they pulled off the Jordynne Grace surprise, absolutely phenomenal. I was very surprised with the reaction that she got from that crowd. I mean, yes, we know that we're going to get the diehards at the big four shows, but I mean, they genuinely embraced her. She looked like $1,000,000. She wrestled like she was worth $10,000,000. And that will not be the last we see of Jordynne Grace in a WWE ring. I don't think that it will be. I mean, she blew a lot of people away. And then Jade effing Cargill, man. I mean, that was probably the best debut that they could have done, and it was worth the wait. It was worth the wait.
100% agree with you on Jade, but the Jordynne Grace of it all, I'd like to go to her first because I don't watch TNA. I keep tabs. I know what's going on. I know of her. And I've probably never seen her wrestle a match. So this was my first taste of Jordynne Grace. And first off, just her entrance alone, her presence is insane. Like, what is she? Thick Mama Pump? Isn't that her nickname?
Yeah.
I think that's very fitting because she's a very imposing figure out there. And she went toe-to-toe with some of the top people in WWE. And I don't know if you've been paying much attention to a lot of the interviews that some of these podcasts have been doing after the Royal Rumble, but Jordynne has even hinted about maybe a Bianca Belair going down to TNA. I know Natty has thrown her name into that hat as well. Do you think now that Jordynne Grace showed up here in the Rumble, had a good showing, that this might open up further, workings with the TNA and WWE?
I sure as hell hope so. I don't remember what episode it was on our show, but I did pose this question to the podcast that given the relationship that we have seen between AEW and New Japan, that working relationship, I didn't think it was out of the realm of possibility for WWE to do the same thing with. And I know that TNA, depending on how you rank them as far as, the overall share of the professional wrestling market, I think that some people thought that might be too beneath WWE, and very clearly, depending on the specific talent, it absolutely works. I would love to see Bianca make a move over to TNA and do something really cool with them. I mean, when you look at the caliber of talent that WWE has, they've got the best women's roster on the planet right now. That's just my personal opinion.
Agreed.
But Jordynne Grace with the likes of Bianca Belair, let's throw Nia Jax in there, Jade Cargill. I'll include Tiffany Stratton, and
yeah.
I think that another person who would benefit from a fun match in TNA would be Natalya. We are so conditioned to what she's done and where her place on that card is over the last 15, 16 years that it's hard to buy her as a main eventer. I think that in 2022, I don't think that a lot of people would have considered Naomi a main eventer the SmackDown Women's Championship run, but I don't know that we were going to see her close out pay-per-views or, main event a WrestleMania. That script is flipped. Give Natty the chance to cook and bring up some of those other talents that are over there. I mean, there is no shortage of people that she could work with. Giselle Shaw, give me Natalya versus Tasha Steelz. The list goes on. I mean, I think that could be good for everybody involved.
I love the Natalya idea because you're right. We're just so conditioned with her in WWE that it's going to be hard for the WWE to position her as a main event player going forth because she's kind of just there to elevate and get the next stars ready for the big time. So Natalya and TNA would be major, and I definitely think that this has opened a door for WWE and TNA going forward. Hell, I would love to see even a Worlds Collide pay-per-view with these two companies. I don't think it's crazy to think that that's a possibility down the road, but you brought up Naomi's performance as well, which first off, welcome back to Trin, because what she was able to do in TNA was awesome. Reinvents herself, comes back. She has that long run in the Royal Rumble. You can tell that the WWE has plans for Naomi because, one, she ain't going to come back if they don't. And two, you just don't book someone to be in there for over an hour without putting her in a main event spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, at this point in time right now, we, and I know that we're going to be talking about the winner of the match here soon. But at this point, Rhea's going to need a dancing partner for WrestleMania. At least it feels that way anyway. Even in light of Nia Jax, giving her the business on Monday night and kind of trying to intimidate Bayley, I do still think that that women's world title spot will be wide open for Mania.
It's a stacked title picture right now in the WWE. There's a lot of names, and you can't count out Nia Jax as well, as we saw what she did on Monday Night Raw. But let's move to a couple comments before we get into Bayley herself, because obviously she deserves her flowers. Kind said the women's rumble was awesome, man. Jade Cargill was unbelievable. She was like Superwoman. Naomi looked so happy to be there. It was amazing return, and he's happy that Bayley won. The road to Bayley Mania is on. It's hard to disagree with him. Jade Cargill was unbelievable. I guess I can really touch on her too as well, because I think you touched on it as well. I don't think there was a better way to present Jade Cargill. She didn't win the Rumble. She didn't need to win the Rumble.
No.
But I think that's probably the best showing that you can get. And that stare down with Bianca Belair, a picture says 1,000 words, and that's exactly what they accomplished there.
Yeah, and I mean, it was only a matter of time, given the comparisons that they have. You know, when you look at both of them, I mean, they both have, just when you look at them, that mainstream crossover appeal. They passed the airport test. You know, it's easy. The Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley thing over the years, and a lot of those similar comparisons. With these two, because they are so similar, they don't need to touch it. You know, you can put them in a tag team. You want to make them rivals, you can do that too. I mean, I could see them being in each other's orbits for the next 5 to 10 years, hands down. I mean, Bianca's at the top of her game right now. Jade is only going to get better. Chris and I were at Jade Cargill's very last match in AEW when they did a Dynamite taping here.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, while I have always enjoyed her body of work, the biggest criticism that we've both had of her is that they took entirely too long to ramp up the quality and caliber of the opponents. So while, yes, that was a dominant TBS title reign, only a handful of those matches stick out. And, you know, she was still very green. But fast forward to signing with WWE, she took some time to go to in her life as well. And there was a lot of criticism online of, you know, she's not ready, or, oh, Triple H saying, well, we want to make sure she's at a certain level means, oh, she's not trying hard enough. And quite frankly, that was bullshit. And that was proved to be bullshit here at the Rumble. I mean, she came in, she looked great. She lifted Nia Jax with ease. I have not seen anybody do that in either one of Nia Jax's run, to where it was just like, I mean, it was like putting on a backpack. Like it looked like it was, you know, it was easy. So, I mean, Jade has money written all over, and if anybody doesn't see that, well, I'm sorry about you.
I tell you what, too, the way she was eliminated, I thought was fantastic, with Liv and Bayley on the apron. A lot of good stuff there throughout. Yeah. But Kind also goes on to say that he thinks the future is a WWE and TNA agreement, means we can have our own Forbidden Door. First off, Kind, you can't say Forbidden Door. Triple H hates that term, by the way. And lend superstars who maybe need to reimagine themselves and create something more, and WWE can borrow too. Similar to what you were saying about Natalya and your co-host, the podcast dad, said Frozen. Yeah, Frozone's going to freeze from time to time. You're just going to have to deal with it. It's okay. But let's talk about Bayley then, because obviously she's the winner of this Rumble. A hell of a performance coming in at number 3. It seems like, at least from recent memory that I can think of, they really love the long runs in the Women's Royal Rumble. Even though she was a little discouraged when she drew that number on SmackDown, she ends up prevailing here. Talk to me a little bit about her performance and what you thought.
Nothing short of exceptional. They're wherever this story is going to go with her road to WrestleMania, they're doing everything they need to do. They'd been teasing the dissension and damage control long enough, and Bayley is too incredibly talented of a performer to just, you know, we had seen the match losing streaks. We had seen her messing up, you know, when trying to help others out within damage control, but this was the moment that she needed to be, you know, to say, hey, I can go win the Rumble. I can go enter and, you know, be an Iron Woman, get this done, and continue to try to unite this group by going after Rhea Ripley. I mean, this is a very well-deserved honor. I mean, she spent 2023 putting over mostly every woman she was in the ring with. I think she's got like a 7% win rate or something like that in 2023. Insane. She carried the company through the pandemic era in a heel turn that I was very skeptical of. I didn't think that I would ever see the day that the Bayley buddies would cease to be on my TV screen, and she created a new character for herself, ran with the monster heel route, and now everybody's ready to cheer her again. You know, combine that with this performance and the fact that with this Rumble win, she has now held every single accolade that WWE has to offer their women's division. This is well deserved. She, I think that because she was the last of the horsewomen to be called up, this perception that she may not be as good, or maybe behind Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky all these years, but the fact that she's the first one to close out with these honors, I mean, it's so well deserved.
It totally is, and it just feels good, even though she's a bad guy, quote unquote, on screen. It's hard not to get emotional a little bit about Bayley finally doing that, because she's been so consistent over the years. You talk about her being the MVP, arguably, of the pandemic era. Her and Drew McIntyre and Sasha Banks, yeah, I would totally agree with you there. But it's just so exciting for her, because she's had one singles match before with Charlotte, I believe, at WrestleMania. But other than that, she really hasn't got her shine. And I think the problem, and it's not really a problem, it's just unfortunate, is she's so consistent that sometimes you just get lost in the shuffle. And it kind of reminds me of what Dolph Ziggler was like when he was in the WWE, because that guy was just so consistent. You knew what you were going to get out of Dolph every single night. You could put him and plug him into any situation, and he would make good out of it. And that's kind of what Bayley is, but here we are in 2024. She's been with the company now for, I believe, 11 years. Finally gets her moment. Finally wins a Rumble. And what a hell of a Rumble to do it. You said it was maybe the best of all time. I would agree with you. I think this was the best women's Rumble. And for me personally, I don't know about you, I thought it was the match of the night here at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree. You needed to get off to a hot start with a card like this, especially when there's only 4 matches, and they absolutely delivered. I mean, even getting the call-ups from NXT, we saw Roxanne Perez, we saw Tiffany Stratton. That shot that they got at the end, I think it was Liv, Jade, Tiffany, and Bianca just kind of sitting in a row there, and it's like, that is the next 15 years of your women's division, kind of watching all of this happen. And I mean, it's very exciting that this is finally a very deep women's roster. Again, I think they need to do a better job of creating those relationships with the crowd, a recognizable Titantron of some sort, because really, I mean, they didn't need to rely on legends this year. We would have seen the likes of Molly Holly, Trish, Lita, a Bella twin or two. I mean, there's so many names that they could have, tried to call back to bring back for this one show, but they finally have a roster deep enough that they don't need to rely on legends, and it's been a very long time since that's been the case.
100% correct. And we talked about that last week here on OTM, and I think I was the one that said it. I was like, you have so much talent, not only on the main roster, but in NXT as well. And you got to see a little bit of that, too, in this Women's Royal Rumble. Roxanne Perez gets in there. Obviously not the greatest of showing for her, but I think she's going to be fine regardless. Yeah. And then you have Tiffany Stratton, who, when you get put at number 29, you know that WWE is fully behind you, because you're not coming in late in the Rumble if you're not a big name. And I thought Tiffany shined bright in this Women's Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Also, honorable mention to Nia Jax. Podcast Dad was a little hesitant to support, and we were wondering if she had improved in the ring and whether anything had changed. And I mean, this is a very different presentation of Nia Jax. Is there still room to grow in the ring? Absolutely. I mean, that's always going to be the case, is there's always room for improvement. But the presentation of her as a final boss of sorts, or at least a credible roadblock on the way to WrestleMania to dash somebody's hopes and dreams, this is the perfect spot for her.
100%. And hand up, I was with you on that. I was never a fan of Nia Jax, still not, for the record, but I see the value. I see what she brings to the women's division. I think you definitely need someone like Nia, and I'm actually interested to see where she falls going into WrestleMania, which leads me to a question we got earlier. I want to see if I can find it. Here it is, from Eric Douglas. He said he's got a random question for us. If Becky wins the Chamber, what do you do at Liv? And I think that's a good question. And maybe Nia's an answer to that. I just don't know how much spots are going to be on the card. It's really a tough call. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think 50-person match for the women's tag titles. I mean, they're doing a really, really good job of trying to build depth in this tag team division. I don't necessarily, I mean, Kabuki Warriors, I think, are going to hold these titles up until WrestleMania. How long they keep them, again, with those titles remains to be seen. But realistically, if you want to put together a tag team of sorts with, you've got Kabuki Warriors, you could do Chelsea and Piper, Candice and Indy if you really wanted to, K2. And then Liv and, put it back with Raquel Rodriguez. That also might be an interesting move. I think that they're always going to see singles potential in Raquel that, eventually you can split her off. I think if you are going to do a singles run with Raquel, monster heel the way that she was in NXT, give her a reason to turn on Liv. Liv, is a big fan of those extreme matches and be able to do physical stuff as far as DQs, cage matches, things like that. Put them together as a tag team just to break them apart.
Oh, for sure. And that's a good shout with Raquel. Her heel stuff with Dakota Kai and NXT was great. And it seems like she really hasn't found her footing yet, whether that be injuries and whatnot. But, Raquel's a name we didn't see in the Rumble, and she could be thrown into the mix as well going into WrestleMania. And that just shows you how stacked the women's division is. Yeah. Let me pull up this comment from my co-host, Tucky. Tuck, thanks for stopping by. I'm sure he's watching from the hospital as we speak. And he's asking if Bayley ends up facing Io at Mania. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I would agree. And the thing is, I really like how they're getting to the story, or at least the seeds that they're planting for this. The fact that Nia basically beat the tar out of Rhea just to prove a point of, okay, you may have won the Rumble. Congratulations. That's fine. You're entitled to a title shot. Yes, that's fine. Congratulations. She's mine. So go deal with somebody else. And that camera shot that they got of Io standing outside the ring, Bayley's kind of cowering of, you didn't let me finish. I'm going to make my decision on Friday. So basically she's going to be intimidated into picking her friend to defend her title against. And that's going to, going to further that splinter of damage control. And
hold on, waiting for him to come back here. You there?
Yeah. Where'd you lose me?
Yeah, I think I caught you right at the end. I heard basically what you were saying. So
okay, all right.
I'll go to the comment section here. Liv and Shotzi.
That would be a fun tag team.
That's something for sure, because Shotzi's another one that really doesn't have anything going on. And Kind says the Raquel return is going to hit like crack. I don't know what hitting like crack is or what it feels like, but maybe that's good. So we'll say it's a good thing. So shout out to Bayley for winning the Rumble. These next two matches, I don't think we need to spend too much time on. Obviously, we know already what happened here in this world title match. Roman retained his undisputed championship in what I thought was a fun fatal four-way. That's probably the best way I could word it. It wasn't anything outstanding. Felt like a little rushed maybe at the end, but overall I think they accomplished what they needed to. I wasn't surprised that Roman retained, and we move on.
Yeah, I in my heart of hearts, I wanted to try to that there might be a title change here. But podcast dad being the wise one that he is, again, just gently reminded me, hey, if Roman's losing the title, that match is not going on second. So the one time where logic wins out in wrestling is kind of what we saw here. But this was fine. And I'm sure that there will be more to talk about as far as the injuries and the overall WrestleMania card, especially as we do our main event mixer this Sunday. Check your local listings. There's still too many moving parts here to kind of see how that championship picture is going to, how it's actually going to shake out for WrestleMania. But, quality win, AJ Styles takes it, so protects Randy from a major pay-per-view loss on his way back into the company and keeps LA Knight hot for whatever they may have planned for him at Mania, hopefully Logan Paul.
Yeah, I think we both are under that assumption that Logan Paul and LA Knight should be the match for the U.S. title. It seems like, too, with all these injuries and the shakeup of the card, it's a good time for LA Knight to get a big moment like that. Step up in this occasion, because we don't have CM Punk now. We still really don't know 100% certain if Seth Rollins is going to be able to go. You never know if there's going to be a setback. Yeah. So a lot of things are being shuffled. So LA Knight getting that U.S. title at WrestleMania would be one of those feel-good moments. I'm laughing already at Kind's comment. I'm not going to read it all out, but he did his best Paul Heyman impersonation in there. basically saying, and still champion. It was nice for Roman to finally defend his title at a PLE. We don't get to see that too often anymore.
It's been a minute.
Is there any chance he shows up at the Chamber, or are there reports that he's not going to be there?
I think it would be a good idea if he did show up. That doesn't necessarily mean that I want to see him wrestle or anything like that. But given the fact that we are looking at an injury to CM Punk that is officially keeping him out of WrestleMania season, Seth Rollins, like you said, is still in the air. I mean, there has to be some additional star power that you add to these matches. I mean, like I said, I don't see him wrestling, but certainly wouldn't kill him to get on a plane to me. We'll see how everything shakes out with Dwayne, but I would hope that they would consider bringing Roman to Perth for sure.
I'll tell you what, Dwayne ain't going to Perth. It ain't going to happen. I know everybody, right when The Rock hinted towards it, was like, yes, we could do Rock versus Roman at the Elimination Chamber. Cody can finish his story, and everything's fine and dandy. No, that's not going to happen. If that match is going to go down, it's either going to be on a Netflix special or it's going to be at WrestleMania. There's really only two options there, but I don't think we need to spend too much time. I'm going to acknowledge the Tribal Chief. Enjoy that reign while you can, because I'm hoping it ends here at WrestleMania 40. But let's move over to the United States Championship match between Logan Paul and Kevin Owens, where Paul successfully, or I shouldn't say, it wasn't really successful, but he retained via DQ for the one time that the ref decided to pay attention to the brass knuckles. Never pays attention when Logan's using them, but when Kevin finds them, he's going to catch you, and that's the reason that Logan Paul retains. It's obviously a finish, Eric, that we don't get often, and I know a lot of people don't like the no finish or the DQ finish, but I think it was warranted in this situation. It made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree completely. When that knuck shot happened, I mean, I was like ready to get up, and the second that I hear that count stop, it's just like, and then you see his eye dart right to it. The camera work was perfect. I mean, everything that needed to be said in that shot was said. Ryan Tran, the most observant referee I think the WWE has ever had, based on that. No finishes suck, especially on a pay-per-view. But on one hand, we're not paying $50 for him anymore. On the other, sets up a return for Kevin Owens should they decide to go that route. Or this is a slow descent into a heel turn.
Which is never a bad thing, because we know how he is as a heel. He definitely, at least in my opinion, is more entertaining as a heel, as is a lot of people, to be fair. But the match itself, I thought was really good. I'm not going to sit here and say this was the best Logan Paul performance ever, but once again, he still looked like a natural out there. As a whole, what did you think of the match?
Yeah, I mean, for the spot it was on the card, that's kind of the let me up to get ready for the men's rumble between the world title match. So I have no problem with the placement of the match on the card or anything like that. Kevin Owens knows how to have a great match with just about anybody. Logan Paul is a savant when it comes to this, and WWE was smart to extend him for a longer deal that seems like it'll be a little bit more full-time than he has been. So
good.
I will be intrigued to see kind of how that goes, because I was very critical of this title run so far. He's had one defense since he won it 2 months ago. That was a DQ win. I think eventually they need to turn this into, what they've done with the Intercontinental Championship with Gunther, and finding a way to add some additional prestige to the United States Championship. I mean, this is a cool social media marketing viral moment going into WrestleMania, because that's when they want the most eyes on the company and on the product, and that's perfectly fine. I have zero interest in a Logan Paul U.S. title run if I'm only going to see that title once every 3 or 4 months. And I don't know.
Well, I was just going to say another thing with Logan Paul sort of being part-time is he's on SmackDown. You know who else is on SmackDown? Roman Reigns. You know who else we don't get to see every week? Roman Reigns. So why do we have 2 part-time champions? I think Logan Paul being there mainly every week would definitely be beneficial going forward. But like you said, the main reason he's got the title right now is probably just to get eyeballs on the product going into WrestleMania, and that's probably what they're going to accomplish. So overall, kudos to them. Kudos to the finish because, we're behind that. But Kind said, what an absolute banger of a match. Logan was empty at the end. The ending was perfect as well. Hopefully have a good match in Perth before LA Knight takes it off Logan at Mania. So my only question to you is, because I thought the same thing when I saw that finish, that Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul probably going to happen at Elimination Chamber. But I don't know if you saw the same report as me. Apparently Kevin Owens was working that entire match with a fractured ankle.
Yeah. It sounds like it happened during the initial tournament itself, or I think it was him and Escobar in the finals leading up to that. If that's true, it's another blow to the WrestleMania card. Kevin Owens is another guy that if you need a Mania program with somebody, I mean, he's one of those guys that you can kind of I'm not sure how bad the injury is, or what the plan is, or if there's any course of treatment that's been recommended or anything like that. But it would definitely suck to not have Kevin Owens on the road to WrestleMania.
I'm not going to say that we're running out of bodies, but man, we can't have any more injuries just because I don't want to see it. I want as many people as possible to get on their WrestleMania card, get their paycheck, because at the end of the day, that's what everybody's working for. You're trying to get on the WrestleMania card, do some great stuff, and have some fun. And a lot of bodies are falling right now. So hopefully Kevin Owens is good to go, because I think him versus Logan Paul at the Chamber would be very good stuff. Your buddy, the podcast dad, Chris, says Braun time. I don't hate that whatsoever. Braun Breaker is mage.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way around that. I mean, Braun Breaker came in, had a phenomenal showing in the Rumble. Just when you see him running the ropes and the just explosiveness and speed, he's getting the comparisons to Tyreek Hill. I mean, you got to stop.
Tyreek's faster. Let's be honest.
And maybe that's something we campaign for, is a foot race between the two. But he's a star. He's ready for the main roster. We'll see kind of what happens at Vengeance Day with the Wolf Dogs. But yeah, give me Braun Breaker on the main roster.
Speaking of Vengeance Day, you mentioned the main event mixer that will be going down this Sunday at 10 a.m. Central. We definitely will be talking about Vengeance Day. I know I already talked about it earlier today. I was on SCW Wrestling Channel with Steve, so shout out to Steve for having me on. Not only is Mr. Cincinnati pulling double duty, but Mr. OTM is as well, which I just realized we both have monikers of Mr. Well, how original can you be?
Mr. Team No Kids.
Mr. Everything over here. Podcast Dad's pumped. He said main event mixer. You know it. Check us out at @main_event_net. But let's move on here to the main event, and it was the men's Royal Rumble where Cody Rhodes went back-to-back. He won in 2023. He did it again this year. Overall, I didn't like the men's Royal Rumble. I'm not going to sit here and hate on it, because after rewatching it, I enjoyed it a little more. Obviously, you didn't have, similar to what the women's Rumble was, a lot of legend appearances showing up. Actually, I don't even think we had any, but you had the surprise return of Andrade. Not a surprise to some of us, because we kind of all assumed it was coming, which was nice. They hit us with the El Idolo. It wasn't the same theme song, which that old theme slaps, by the way, but it was still nice to see Andrade back in the WWE, wasn't it?
It really was. I think that this will be a much better fit for him. I don't blame him for going to AEW, but when your wife is working for the competition, I mean, it just makes more sense to go on home. Triple H certainly knew how to use him more so than the previous regime did. So I see this being nothing but a positive for Andrade. I mean, he came back in phenomenal shape. I think he looks better than he did in that original NXT run. Like it's I don't know. That seems to be the trend here these days. Go away for a while and just get ripped and he's ready to go. So I am excited to see what he can do here. This was a fun return. I had the same sentiment as you as far as this match itself. and podcast dad can attest to this. I was a little deflated seeing Cody Rhodes win this one. It was just kind of I really thought that Punk would win this, go on to Seth at Mania. I just feel like if we're gonna do the second stab at finishing the story, make it harder. Have him go through Elimination Chamber to get there too. But again, I also watched it back the next day, and the fact that he is in a very rare company to go back to back says how much trust they have in him as a performer, as a employee.
Yes, it does. I think Stone Cold's a part of that list. Batista, Hulk Hogan,
Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania. I want to put that on the record. But I think I talked about it too. Yeah, that's a shot at the podcast, Dad, right there. I know he's still watching this right now. But I think I mentioned it on your guys' podcast that I understood Cody going back to back because he is on Raw. Roman Reigns is on SmackDown. Logistically, the only path to getting to Roman is not the Elimination Chamber. It is winning the Royal Rumble. And that's where I sat about 2 months ago, dude. 2 months ago, I think it might even be a TikTok on the main event feed where I early predicted Cody and Bayley to win the Royal Rumble. But that Monday Night Raw, the Raw before the Rumble, totally did a 180 in my brain. I was like, all right, Gunther's winning this thing. They're teasing it. It's going to happen. And I shouldn't have, doubted myself and went with my gut. But I'm not mad at Cody going back to back. I think we all can agree that if Cody doesn't finish the story at WrestleMania 40, then I think they fucked up.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen here, if they're going to give him the Rumble storyline to get back to finishing the story, like I know how appealing it is to want to surpass Hollywood Terry. I may not be on my show, but I'm still not saying his name on this show. So,
brother,
I just God, okay.
That's all I got. Don't worry, I don't like him either. I think he's a piece of shit. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
It's like I can understand wanting to try to chase that because how often are we going to see another run like this again? I mean, it's
Probably
going
never.
to be a while, I feel like. But, with Cody, you have an organically over star that everybody wants to cheer for. The reception for him has only gotten louder since he came back 2 years ago. I mean, this is the perfect person to be your champion, to be the face of the company. We've had 3.5 years of a part-time champion. Let's make both titles workhorses again.
It's crazy to me too. You talk about how Cody's reactions just keep getting louder and louder. I thought eventually the WWE crowd, because we know how fickle they can be. Daniel Bryan told us years ago that they would have turned their backs on Cody Rhodes, but it only seems to progress as the days go on. And I think if you don't pull that trigger at WrestleMania 40, you're going to lose everyone, and then you might as well turn Cody heel. But we could talk about Cody, when we're going to talk about Cody a lot on the road to WrestleMania. I want to revisit the Braun Breaker discussion because there are reports that he kind of took that spot from Brock Lesnar. Obviously, if you don't know, Brock Lesnar's name is associated with something that's going on with Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. We don't need to get into detail about that. You can research it yourself. But Braun Breaker's performance in this Royal Rumble, I would probably say that he was the MVP. That Spearman, best in the business right now.
Absolutely devastating, the delivery of that move. This was the perfect replacement. Yeah, I mean, it just, everything about it made sense. We'll see if there's any additional follow-up with Dominic Mysterio, given the elimination or kind of what they plan to do. I know that they wanted to do Dom versus Brock at Elimination Chamber, which interesting, clash of styles there. I don't necessarily see them going that route, especially given the fact that they're likely going to win the Dusty Classic at Vengeance Day here. What that means as far as a future title shot, whether that is at Stand and Deliver, remains to be seen. I'm not calling them Tom and Nick, Chris, but
you should.
I'm not going to. That's no, because because he's gonna get all about it. So, I don't need to see Braun Breaker do anything else in NXT. I really don't. I mean, he has done everything that there is to do. Even during his initial NXT title run, he was being brought up to Raw, where he had that very brief program with Dolph Ziggler. It's clear that he can do it. I just don't see, I mean, there's plenty of names that can step up on NXT and be the next. I mean, Obafemi is a great example of that. You want somebody with power and size and speed, like that's your dude right there.
That's a good point from Kine. He said the most valuable, the MVP, I think he was trying to say. He said MVM, which is our award. He said was R-Truth for the men's and the women's Royal Rumble. Yeah, that's something we didn't touch on for the women's Royal Rumble, man. Him showing up at 24. First off, Michael Cole freaking out about the antlers that Valhalla had was weird in itself. And then you have R-Truth coming out in the women's Royal Rumble.
Yep.
And then in the men's, he's asking for the tag. I mean, what a gem R-Truth is, man. That's phenomenal stuff.
I mean, who would have thought that at 51, 52 years old, we are talking about the career resurgence of Ron Killings. I mean, this is, if there was ever a comeback wrestler of the year award to give out in 2024, I mean, I think that he is running away with it.
Ooh, we should add that to the OTMEs.
Yeah.
That's a good award right there. We only got 6 or 7. I think we could do more. Got to fill out a whole show,
I was gonna say we have a spreadsheet. We'll compare notes sometime.
Ooh, there we go. I already got my list going too for match of the year. I do that every single year, and I already got 3 on it. And spoiler alert, the women's Royal Rumble has made the list for now.
As it should.
Things get deleted though as time goes on. Kine went on to say that the men's Royal Rumble was mid. I would agree. He said we got the GOAT Omos back. The Usos facing off was good, but they could have done more.
That's another one. Yeah,
that's a good point, I think, from Kine, because first off, starting off with those two, genius idea. I think it was tremendous, but the fact that they weren't involved in each other's elimination was kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they could have easily made it to the final 6 or 8. Give them a quality run. Because much like we have said about Cody and switching as far as switching brands to go after Roman and the Rumble being the place to do that, Jimmy and Jay are also on both shows. This at least would have given some incentive for either one of them to go to their respective general managers to try to finagle something to where they just show up for a night. I still think that you can get to Jimmy versus Jay. At this point, the only other way to go is Elimination Chamber, potentially, depending on how the Rumble selection plays out, and have something happen to where Jimmy costs Jay or vice versa, something along those lines to get them to WrestleMania. I think that they would be doing them a disservice if they did not put this match at WrestleMania. But selfishly, if SummerSlam is in Cleveland, and we are hoping we could get Jimmy versus Jay there, put him in Money in the Bank, because at that point it's a co-branded event. You're going to get the same result there.
Yeah, selfishly, that match at SummerSlam would be great.
Yep.
Also, a CM Punk return there. I know that's pushing the timetable maybe a little bit, but maybe you do CM Punk versus Rollins there, because we know we're not going to get it at WrestleMania. Regardless, though, I'm surprised they haven't officially announced the location for SummerSlam. Like, there is speculation that it's going to be in Cleveland, but we're only like 5 months away.
I know it's making us a little uneasy, because we very much want to want to be there. Yeah, exactly.
Bro, we need Airbnbs. We need bars. We need indie shows on Friday. We need main event shit going on. We need it all.
Yeah,
because that'll be the first time we actually meet in person, people.
Yes.
So be prepared for SummerSlam weekend, because it's about
to be nuts.
As Ian would say, we're going to be popping large that weekend. He came up with that one random show. Sometimes he just says words, and it turns out to be good like that.
Yeah,
so we're running with it.
Yeah.
Cody is Michael Jordan right now, Kine says. He's going back to back. He's going to three-peat if it is Roman who wins or Cody chooses Seth. That Raw promo was pretty good from Seth Rollins. He made some fair points.
That was a plot twist I definitely didn't see coming. I don't know if that is a furthering of something that they already have in place, or if this is buying them more time. However, the logic makes sense. Do you want the part-time belt, or do you want the one that your dad probably would have gone after? Logic is, let's see, Chris says, give him Roman Rock, Cody wins, whatever. But it's an interesting wrinkle, that's for sure. Whether that does anything to change Cody's mind significantly, I personally don't think so, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think they're kind of just buying time because there's a lot of uncertainties out there right now. But at least they made it make a lot of sense. That's what I appreciate. Like, you can't hint towards that without connecting some dots, and they definitely did. Because, like you said, Cody, if he wanted to be like the American Dream, he would go after the Workman's title. And obviously, Seth's not going to be working the next couple months, so I guess you can make a case that it's not the Workman's title. But I digress, Seth. I appreciate you as the champion, but I think I speak from the majority of the people. I'd much rather get Cody versus Roman than get Cody versus Seth again, because we've already seen Cody beat Seth 3 times.
Yeah, and I mean it's a lot like Swerve and Hangman in AEW. I mean, Swerve has beaten Hangman 3 times. What is the incentive to get back into the ring with him? I mean, for Seth, it's I can finally avenge, those losses. And I mean, let's be honest, Seth lost to a essentially one-armed Cody Rhodes. It wasn't.
I was there for that, for the record. I just want to put that out there if you did not know.
Love that. Yeah, so I mean, I don't think that there's much incentive for Seth, or at least for Cody anyway, to or Cody go after Seth. I lost my train of thought there, sorry.
Yeah, that happens.
But I don't know. They're certainly going to make this road to WrestleMania much more intriguing than it really ever has been. There were a lot of times when we had an idea in October who's winning the Rumble and where they're going for Mania, and it's not really clear here this time.
Sometimes it was even a year away.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can see the writing on the wall. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, sure, I agree with Chris. Seth and Cody would be the better wrestling match, but I think the better story is Cody ultimately overcoming the odds, which at the time, selfishly, I was at WrestleMania. It was my first WrestleMania. I wanted Cody to win right there and then.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, you look back at it and you go, damn it, WWE, you were right again and I was wrong. I think that was the right call to not have him win at WrestleMania last year.
Yeah, I watched the Bengals lose the Super Bowl when I was in that exact same stadium, and that was also the wrong call. So
you went to the Super Bowl?
I did go to the Super Bowl, and yes, I felt your pain.
How much did that cost?
Way more than I'm going to say on camera.
That's fair. That's fair. I was gonna say I saw the tickets. Like the cheapest ticket for this year's Super Bowl was like $9,000.
Yeah, no, it was worth every penny for sure. But I mean, and let me ask you this: I can't remember if I've asked you this before, but as far as when you hear this phrase "finish the story," is it about winning that Universal Championship, or is it about winning that Universal Championship from Roman Reigns in your mind?
That's a great question, and I've seen a lot of discussion over it too. I think you can make a case for both, but I think ultimately the story is just getting the gold. It doesn't matter who Cody beats. The Rhodes family has never held the World Heavyweight Championship, and I think that ultimately is really what finishing the story is. But in my head, I think it's beating Roman just because I need to see it.
Yeah, I think before the Rumble, when I thought he's probably not going to win it and would probably have to go through Elimination Chamber or find some way to get himself over there, I probably would have said it's just about the title. But the fact that they have given him the Rumble story, it's a back-to-back Rumble win. I mean, he basically called out, or at least inferred calling out Roman at the end by pointing to the skybox, even with the wrinkle included with Seth. I mean, I think now it is you have to beat Roman Reigns. You have to, and there's into face during this title run right now, unless you switch Gunther to SmackDown. I mean, unless Big E comes back and there's some miracle
which
return.
Feels like they're hinting towards that, man. It really does.
I want.
Why
that
are they
so
setting
badly.
us up like that? Because if they don't deliver with it, then they're gonna look stupid.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
I don't know. I still think Andrade facing Gunther would be mage. I think anybody facing
that'd be cool.
Gunther would be awesome. But overall, I ask this question to Tuck and Ian all the time. We go off the letter grade system because Tuck is a teacher. Give me your letter grade for the Royal Rumble.
I am going to give it a B+. women's Rumble was stellar. There really wasn't much more I think that they could do outside of a Sasha Banks return that would have amped up the star power the way that it did. Roman, in hindsight, feels predictable. Absolutely loved the finish of Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul. Protects everybody involved there. Men's Rumble, I don't know. I think if you had swapped the men's and women's, there might be a little bit more excitement around it. But happy with Cody being the winner. I mean, he works his ass off. I mean, he is the guy for that company. But I think that it lacked, and that could have used a couple more surprises for sure. And it just is what it is. I think that we expect for one of the bigger shows of the year, especially when it's essentially WWE's All-Star game.
Yeah, for sure. And Kine agrees with you. He's got it at a B+ as well. I'm going to go slightly under you at a B, and I think it's like an 85. I think it was a very good show. And I think Chris is the one that put it in the comment section earlier that we might have overhyped the men's Royal Rumble. We might have just overhyped the show as a whole, expecting it to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And nobody's sitting here shitting on the game or on the show. But it was very good, and the winners I love. So I think ultimately that's what brings it to a B for me. So this then takes us to the part of the show where we award our most valuable mark. And to me personally, there were two people in the comments going back and forth. It was your co-host, Chris Hoops, a.k.a. the podcast dad, and the reigning, defending MVM Kine himself. Unfortunately, Mr. Cincinnati, you're not a part of OTM, so you don't get to make this call.
That's okay.
It pains me to say it because I thought it was a valiant effort by the podcast dad. But ladies and gentlemen, and still MVM of the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, Kine. So shout out to Kine. Still the MVM. It was a grind out there. If you had to give out a winner, though, who would have been your pick for the MVM today?
Come on. I got to do a show with the guy and a half.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Obviously it would be the podcast dad. Who else am I going to pick right now? Okay. It's, you know what? We may give each other shit. It's again, that's just the nature of our friendship.
Wait, Chris, isn't he your lawyer? Isn't this guy your lawyer?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm hearing from him right now.
It's all right. It's fine. Oh yeah, it's all right. It's fine. It's okay. I get it. He's I don't know. I probably deserve that one. I'm still gonna say podcast dad. I gotta, keep a happy podcast around.
He could be your MVM. That's fine. But our MVM this week and still Kine. Eric, I want to thank you for doing this last minute. I literally texted you 2 hours before the show, I want to say. Yeah. You stepped up. You filled in for my two wonderful co-hosts that I'm usually with. But I'll give you the time here to plug your show because I know we got a podcast coming up for you guys here in a little bit.
Appreciate that. We are going live in about a half hour. It's our Wind Down Wednesday episode, even though I'm drinking sours today. Let's see. We've got 2 interviews that are going to be dropping this Friday. Cannot wait for you guys to check those out. There will be a new Stump the Smark as well. We have a wheel now, and it's not just a damn guessing game, and Johnny Van Frank is just a horse's ass. So that being said, follow us at Junkies Pod, like, share, subscribe. If you know one person that would like our show, just send it to them. Always for having me, and Main Event Mixer on Sunday.
Main Event Mixer on Sunday indeed. And similar to what you were saying, if you were watching this episode of OTM and you share it with one other person, it would be greatly appreciated because we're not just trying to grow ourselves. We are trying to grow the network as a whole. Yep. Eric and Chris, great dudes over there at the Wrestling Junkies. So make sure you check them out here in just a half hour. I'm going to go watch AEW Dynamite, and we will talk to you guys next time. Thank you for listening for the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast.